In this video, we'll look at how to approach Edexcel English Language, Paper 1, Questions 1 and 2. These are the first questions you'll encounter on this paper, and overall they're worth 3 marks. Here's a tip. Before you even get to the exam room, it's a really good idea to revise which assessment objective each question examines, so you know how best to answer. Questions 1 and 2 on Paper 1 both assess AO1, which is your ability to identify and interpret explicit and implicit information and ideas. Remember, explicit information is specific and clearly stated. For example, which colour the writer describes something as. Finding implicit information requires inference or reading between the lines. For example, how the writer shows a character's mood or emotions by describing the way that they move. So, let's look at an example. For this question, you'll be asked to identify a word or phrase which shows something. In this case, how Igor moved down the stairs. To make it easy to stay on track, it's a good idea to circle or highlight the focus of the information you're after, as well as the lines you're asked to concentrate on. You might also find it useful to box off that section of the text so it's really clear what you're working with. The same process of highlighting and boxing off can be useful with question 2 as well. So these aren't very high marking questions, so you shouldn't spend too long on them. About 5 minutes for both of them should be enough. Once you've finished your first read-through of the text, you can then just skim read the relevant parts and pick out the best bits of information that answer the question. It could be useful to highlight those in some way too. Remember, in question 1, if it asks you to identify the word or phrase, there's usually only one correct answer. If it asks you to identify a word or phrase, you may have a choice of options. In the line, Igor descended the stairs slowly and methodically, as if every movement mattered. Any of the 3 answers highlighted here would be considered valid. For question 1, you don't need to write in full sentences. The quotation will be enough. Typically, the answer for question 1 is after explicit information, such as how someone does something or a specific fact about something in the text. For question 2, the same skill is being assessed, but there are a couple of differences. So this time, you need to identify 2 valid answers, and you're allowed to use your own words. This means that you can use a quotation from the text directly, or rephrase it to explain the same point. For example, let's imagine that the question asks you to identify 2 ways that the writer shows Igor is old, and the text says, his face was etched with lines that told of the vast number of decades he had existed. In your answer, you could accurately write, 1. His skin had a lot of wrinkles as a way of showing his age, and 2. Vast number of decades, in quotation marks. 1 point paraphrases the text, and 1 is a direct quotation, but they both get a mark. You need to be careful that you're interpreting the text accurately, though. You couldn't say that Igor told you the number of years he'd been alive, as this wouldn't be an accurate interpretation of the sentence. It's the narrator speaking in the text and not Igor, and although the narrator tells us Igor is old, we're not given his exact age. OK, we'll leave it there. To round up, to be successful on Edexcel Paper 1, Questions 1 and 2, your response has to be accurate and taken only from the lines stated in the question. And your response must relate to the focus of the question. It'd be worth practicing what we've just walked through with an actual exam paper, so you can see how it works and try it for yourself. Why not use the Edexcel style paper that's attached to this pod? Good luck!